Now, we are going to make a substrate material for our platform. You may ask why? Because we have never touched upon on the subject, and this is a good opportunity. Substrate material is a new material type, or you could say material function they introduced in Unreal. And it is a way to layer materials without actually using multiple material sources, and it looks and computes the layers with their alphas, with the lights and reflections all together to give us very high quality results. So, first of all, we need a slab, since I removed the previous default material inputs. And we need a second one if we are making two layered slab, which we are going to do. And we need a vertical substrate layer. We put it like this here, and this here. This is what we are going to do for now. Now, this has some similar and options to the original one. So let's first add our colors. Diffuse albedo is the same as your color node previously. So let's make it for now cyan blue. Add a different one and add it to diffuse albedo here. And let's make it yellow for now. We will change it later. Let's add a roughness because I want this top material to be very shiny. Let's make it 0.5. 0.05. And we have it like shining blue. But we cannot really see the yellow. To do this, we need to add this particular node helper. There are two of them. We need the second one. And we drop these to here. And give it a moment. Now, suddenly, this material looks very different. Let's save it. You can see this is a layer of two materials. And if you look at from the top, where the light is reflected, you can see the shine quite easily. And if you look at the bottom, we have a darker color. We could change the color to make it more clear. Let's say dark blue and let's say deep purple. It's quite easy to see this way. But what's more important is we can add normals. Normals are for adding textures, so we can just add a texture node, sample, add a normal, and I believe we had some from Unreal Starter Pack for cobblestone, or was it? Oh yeah, we have normals for cobblestone. We have smooth ones as well. Let's add smooth ones and give it a second. And now we have a layered material with smoothness to it. So let's now make color something we would actually like to see. I want brighter color with some darker hues. Let's make it cyan blue. I want essentially two layers. Now we apply this. Let's go back to the level and see how it looks. Let's give it a moment. And let's select our new material and put it in here. Obviously, we need to adjust the tiling, but now we have a very different material. Let's adjust the tiling significantly. So texture coordinate, edit UVs, the only one I have here. Let's make it very high number. Let's style it 10 times. Save. Saving automatically also applies. And we have this material now. It looks like there is a sheet of glass when you look it from one direction, which is the point of substrate materials. This would be very hard to get this specific effect if you were to do it with regular materials. But this may be quite hard on the eyes. So what we can do, let's test it with different colors. What we have, black with some, let's say, bright red underneath. Let's go back to, well, black itself is not much of a color, but the fact that we have this roughness parameter here affects how it looks. So if we were to increase roughness, let's say to 1, and apply this material, suddenly we have a rough material, but we don't want it that rough. Let's reverse it, and we don't really want it black. Let's do something fancy and have two bright colors collide with each other as such. And we have the styling node. Let's increase it even more. I want even more smaller rocks in the pavement. And let's give it a moment. And now we have this material, which I think I am okay with it. You could add multiple colors, multiple layers, and be creative. And obviously the substrate by itself has multiple options. You could, for example, edit the roughness of the second layer as well. So if you make second layer roughness 0, the second layer will be very shiny. So now suddenly there is more shine on the second layer. And if we reverse this a bit, top layer will not have any shine to it, but bottom layer will be. So it will eat the shine. But if we can also do this, and roughness here can be of a similar value, and add a thickness to the layer. So how thick is the top layer? So when we have this top thickness at 0, means essentially top thickness doesn't exist, we will not really see it. So let's just prove a point, apply, and see. We have a very glossy yellow material. But if we put it into something like 1, this is too thick to see the yellow. But if we do it 0.5, still too thick. 0.1, maybe it's still too big. The logic here is this is too thick to see through the object. At 0.01 you can barely see it, and barely see the yellow, I mean. And if we reduce this a bit more, by bit I mean 10 times, now it's all yellow. You could just put it at something like 5, and you can adjust how much you want the material to be see-through, but it should be a very small number. Sadly, Unreal doesn't have a documentation on how small the default value should be, but we can just test it out and take a look at it as we are tweaking around. The 0.2 is too thick, and maybe we should have a value of 0.7. And again, we could also disable it and see the difference. As you can see, bit more yellow, bit more blue. Sadly, I'm not aware of what's the default thickness of it, but I'm going to assume it is somewhere between 1 and 2. Most likely 1.5, 0.05, yes, something along this size. So I want it to be more yellow, so I'm going to put it at 0.5. Apply. Take a look at it. Now, the blue and yellow is not a good combination, but we are going to leave it for now because I want to test it and show you how it looks with a different normal applied. So, second layer we have is essentially looks like a layer of rocks because of this normal we have here, normal texture. But we can also add a texture on the first layer. So if we put this here and plug it into normal, my apologies, we need a texture node. We put it here. And let's add a different texture node. So we can just search for N. We don't want clay. Is there any interesting normal? Let's take a look at rust. Rust as a normal texture. Let's apply it. We may need to edit tiling. Yes. Now we have this weird rust-like thing on top. I don't like the tiling of this, so we are going to add a texture node. Let's identize this as well. Apply it. Rust node normals may not be the best, but suddenly we have these imperfections in the material. It feels like a block of water is frozen above the cobblestone pathway, but the pathway itself is also layered, and all of this is done by simple material. If we were to just remove this material, it looks like a block of stone. But here, now what we can do is instead select something that would make more sense with a cobblestone, maybe basalt normals. And let's change the colors as well. Blue is not a good color. Let's make it something like brown. Brown color mixed with, let's see, let's make a color to color material. Apply this. Perhaps it's a bit too bright. Yes, this is a bit too bright. So let's reduce the saturation of it and have it a bit darker. Maybe a bit more. You can pick the color of this. Again, here as well. Let's take the saturation and put it below. They're very similar to colors, which is completely fine for our purpose. Yes, this should be fine. This now looks like color scheme is not that far off. We could make it a bit more dark on both accounts. We can, which is more important, increase the roughness to make it less shiny. So let's make it 0.4. And this one can be straight up 1. Save. Okay, now it's much less shiny. We don't want it to be metallic or anything. There are additional parameters. Is like, for example, if we put fuzz roughness here, and let's say fuzz amount, let's take a look at them and put it into 1, and fuzz roughness into 0. Let's make it 1 as well, and add a color. Let's say red. We will get an additional tint. But this is a bit too much, so let's reduce fuzz amount to 0.5, perhaps even 0.2. So just add some redness to our material. And now we have a material that's a combination of 3 colors, 2 normals. It has multiple parameters for roughness, and we did not touch a lot of additional settings here. And there is multiple ways we can go about this. We can add additional vertical layer and add one more substrate slab and layer them again, and add even more normals, even more colors, even more like additional roughness, UVs, etc. There are infinite ways you can use this to make good looking materials, and Unreal has a substrate material demo you can download for free and check it out from their education and tutorial section in Fab, or in the Unreal launcher there's a samples section that you can click on and take a look at them. I do not believe Unreal has substrate samples in the starter content. Yes, they don't have it, but you can download them and take a look at them. Anyway, for now, let's say we are finished with our scene. Next, we want to add gameplay element in this scene. So first we need to make sure our character works. Let's press play. And our character spawned in the middle of the screen. Why? If we go higher and press play, our character spawned from where our camera is. The reason why this happens is because we don't have a certain indicator in the scene. And that actor is called, here, let me see. Character, 1 second. Player start node, this one. So this player start node defines where your character starts the game. Obviously you can overwrite it like in-game by save files or just some triggers, like, but usually this is just a starting point. And now, regardless of where our camera is, our player always will spawn in that point. Make sure to this doesn't really is in a proper position. If you put something like this, you will fall through the ground. So you need to make sure your player start is in correct position to not overlap with other objects too much. And yes, we have this. Now we can do some gameplay stuff. We can move around our scene because we created these rocks with our materials. They don't have collision, which, to be honest, we don't want in the first place. And before we start, let's add some kind of way to climb this part even if we are not going to use it, just for visual purposes. So let's go to our place actor tab. In the Windows, go to place actors. And let's go to basic shapes. I believe we had a stair somewhere. Yes, curved stair, line stair. And let's use this. This is a brush mesh. So this is not really a mesh, it's more like a modeling tool combined with static mesh. And you can just increase the amount of steps it has. Let's increase the height for 80. And number of steps to, let's say, 50. Oh, I may have overdone it. Let's say number of steps should be something like 35, 32. Make it a bit. It should be fine. Maybe let's make it wider. It's the rest of the scene. And let's just keep it like this. And after we have aligned it as we want, we can create static mesh. And let's keep it in the generated mesh folder. And now this is converted to mesh, and we can use our material, which we used here. You can just click on browse, go click on this mesh, and click on use selected asset from the browser. And now we have the same mesh applied here. Because this mesh is much smaller, the tiling is very small as well, but it's fine. And now, in case we fall off, as I did just now, we could climb, but this mesh does not have a collision. So we click on it, click the collision, and we need to select collision preset to block all, as it's a mesh. And I just noticed we have some empty space there. We can fix it in a second, but it still doesn't work. Now the question may be, why doesn't this work? Which I will showcase you in a second. So this is a brush. We created it from the basic brush, right? And if we check the lid and go to player collision, this doesn't have a collision. The reason why we created this mesh, but we never set collision on it. So what you can do is you can go open the mesh we have generated and click on player collision, and there is nothing, and click on the collision button on top to create one. So there's add sphere collision, there's capsule, there's box. So if you click on the box simplified collision, this is not ideal. So just to demonstrate how it will look, let's move our player start nearby so we don't have to walk too much. Now we are moving on air. The reason is because there's a collision at the shape of a box underneath us, and that's not ideal for our purposes. Just a general rule, keep in mind, the only things you can touch in the scene are scenes that have collision. Unreal generates certain collisions by default, assuming you will need them. But there are certain cases where, like this, it's not being generated, because this is usually used for prototyping, not actual layout of the scene. Now, to make a proper collision for this, ideally you would custom create it in a modeling software or just move around your collision by yourself by using some tools, modeling tools, etc. But instead, what we are going to do, we are going to remove our inefficient collision. Click on the collision and convert boxes to collision. And we will click on auto boxes collision, auto convex collision, my apologies. And on the right side, we select the quality, and we don't really care too much about this quality, and we will click apply. You may want to reduce certain collisions but now this is misshaped. If you make it very low, this will look very bad. As you can see, this is not even a full collision. So let's just put in defaults and press apply. This is not really ideal. As you can see, there are extra vertices, etc. There's collision lines that don't make sense. But this is just for prototyping purposes, so we can just leave it as it is. And now we can move around. Now we have this ladder, which, to be honest, we are not really going to use, because I intend to encompass this whole area with a collision box. So player cannot just jump out of the layer. A lot of games, you may remember if you're a proficient gamer, has out of bounds areas with invisible walls, etc. And the reason why it is done is the developers don't want you to go where you are not supposed to go. For example, in this case, I am climbing this mountain, and if I go beyond this mountain, there is nothing there. And I will fall out of bounds, and when I reach a certain point in the map, the actor will get destroyed, or I will be infinitely stuck in a falling animation. Obviously, this is not ideal, and we don't want that to happen. So usually we add invisible collisions so you cannot move outside it. Again, this can be easily done going to place actors, and we can just search for it by typing blocking. So we have now a blocking volume. So we add this, drop to the level, we can remove our place actors. You could also click here and go to volumes and go to blocking volume, or just search here. So we have this blocking volume now, which all we really need to do is size up, scale up to be more precise. And let's do this. And I'm just for demonstration purposes, I'm going to make it very big in all sides and put this invisible wall in the middle. So let's press play and let's try to go into the middle of the scene. You may see something familiar. I am not able to move beyond this point. Visually, it does not make any sense, but there's a blocking volume here that's preventing my movement. So what we need to do instead, we will just shrink it down, make it longer, and put it so it encompasses the level. The easiest way to do this, we can use player collision to see exactly where player is not able to move. And we don't want the player move any further than this. Let's make it a bit more bigger. And we can shift alt click this, move it all the way around. We can shift alt click this again, rotate this 90%, nice degree, and shift alt again and move it all the way here. And now, while this may look like wonky because they are not perfectly aligned, to be honest, they don't matter as much, as we are not going to see them here. Obviously, you would want to have your collision boxes precise, but for prototyping your scene, you should not really worry about it. On the topic of prototyping, during the game development, it's very important to prototype and test your games fast. In most cases, the reason why a game is released and it's not fun is because it was not prototyped and tested properly at the initial stage. And when the developers realize their game is not actually fun, they are met with a choice. They need to either continue developing the game that they know is not fun, or they try to somehow make it fun, or they just push through and release it as it is, or while the most ideal from the standpoint of morality, they need to restart the whole project. So the best way to know if what you're making is fun or not is to make a game. And to make your core concept of gameplay, even if your models look like nothing, what you need to do is just use what you have at hand, make a fast prototype of what you are trying to make, and make it into a game. So, what we are doing here now, we just have a random environment with some random foliage and debris, etc., rocks, and this very random, most likely in opinion of most people, very ugly platform that we are going to use as a gameplay area. I am trying to make sure I use every chance possible to explain the additional functionality of the tools available to you in the scene. As such, we are going to do some things different. We don't want it to be light time, so what we are going to do, we are going to Control L and make it darker. I will make it even darker later. We are going to add light sources on top of here, on all these lines. And these light sources will be our main sources of light. And it will be mostly visual element. And the light color will change depending on what we do in the game. So my idea currently is very simple. We are going to have some physics objects like spheres, and we are going to push these physics objects into a certain part of the arena that will move around, and your goal is to get certain amount of balls into the arena, and after you are done with that, you are free to go from this platform, and this will be the end of our game. We are going to have some interactables, and we are going to have a gateway here where our ladder is, and most likely we will add some walls here to make sure you cannot really go out without overly relying on these blocking volumes that's just straight up blocks you. We are going to add some framework essentially, and we are going to add some doors here, something that functions like a door, like something like gate or a fence. Yeah, fence is most likely. So now let's discuss what we need for this. We need a light source. We are going to reuse our previous blueprint with some differences. We are going to use a fence to just add an illusion that they have a collision and it's blocking our movement outside. We are going to use props we have at hand. And we will need physics objects, which will be regular basic shapes, like spheres. And we will need to create some blueprints to move around our zone that is essentially going to act as a gate you need to score points in. And this is the going to be basic gameplay concept of this demo. Essentially, this is a very simple prototype game we are making just to see if it is fun, which is most likely the most important part of the game development, to see if you can make something fun. While I am showing you how to do all this, you are not forced to repeat my steps step by step. You can create something fun straight away. I am trying to make sure we can learn as much as possible about game development process in the Unreal while also trying to not waste too much of your time. And to keep in mind, these are all bare bone basics. Every single element in the Unreal is very complicated if you dig deep enough. For instance, the way light works, how does the shadows work, how the material functions work, how can I create materials that move around. Like, imagine every single game you have ever played or seen in your life. Every single, even relatively simple stuff in the games, logics, functions, if you try to implement it in a game, suddenly a lot of points that pop up that you have no idea how to do or how they work. The most important thing as a game developer to understand how gears click together, how one object interacts with another, how a material reflects light, how shadows work together with the light, how landscapes, the meshes, the static meshes, the characters all can interact with each other. How can you just open a simple door is different for each game. Do keep in mind how it's all done. And in the next lecture, we are going to create our game elements. For now, let's finish setting up our scene.